What's up, everybody? This is King L. Bay. I'm finna drop this hot video on y'all. So, this is the Ghost in the System again, and I'm gonna drop this information on y'all so y'all can start putting this puzzle together. So, we're gonna talk about foreign corporations. We're gonna talk about foreign franchises and everything, and a lot of y'all gonna try to enforce your common law copyright, and you're not gonna have all your credentials you need to be able to enforce your common law copyright, because you're gonna need this. You're gonna need a foreign judgment in order to sustain that. So, in certain areas, you got to understand what the federal court was. One of their primary functions is to deal in international law. So you got to understand this and take it to the degree and put this together where you can really start to assimilate this information, so you can constantly, consistently get a remedy. And you have to learn how to manage all of this so you can ensure the integrity of your process. So we're going to jump in here and get this started. So let's talk about a foreign judgment. A foreign judgment means any judgment, decree, or order of a court of the United States or of any court of another state that is entitled to full faith and credit in this state. So you got to understand what that means. And a lot of y'all y'all so busy reading federal statutes, and I get it, because that's what more likely where Morris is going to go. But you have to understand the state will show you how to unlock these mysteries on how to deal with state and federal jurisdiction appropriately. So I just wanted to show you that. And before we move on, I'm going to show you this. We're going to go into this section, and we're going to talk about I just want to show you this. We're going to talk about corporations. So they talk about foreign corporation. A foreign corporation incorporated under the laws of another state. So you hear that. Another state, or bank, saving, or savings loan association chartered under the laws of the United States, the main office of which is located in another state. So they talk about foreign. And you got to understand this in a degree so that you can incorporate this to do this right. So you have to understand this. So you can get this. So you got to understand how to align with your foreign corporation or your franchise and your instruments and all of that, and on and on, so you can get your remedy and enforce it and get you a judgment. And I'm just saying, there's levels to this. You know what I mean? So I'm just giving y'all some pieces to the puzzle. I'm not going to break everything down, because I think I gave away a lot of valuable jewels and Ghosts in the System and on the Moorish Universal Society of Tribes site on the YouTube channel. So a lot of y'all are going to be able to get this information, and I gave a lot of information away so y'all guys can start putting this puzzle together. And like I said, a lot of y'all will I'm trying to get everybody to come together because strength comes in numbers, so that we can move in a fashion that we can be private investors. But I want to show you, I want you to see there's such things as a franchise court. Now we're going to move into the definition of a franchise court. A franchise court history. A privately held court usually exists by virtue of royal grant. That's when the crown grants you the right to franchise, with jurisdiction over a variety of matters depending on the grant and whatsoever powers the court acquires over time. So I want you to understand that the United States is a franchise. So by it being a franchise, it had to be granted. It had to be granted information. Hold on 1 minute. So the thing about that is, in order for the United States to be a franchise, they had to be granted, like I said, it was a royal grant. So they created a franchise based upon the Crown of England. So you gotta understand, statutes, I showed y'all in my other videos that statutes are British law. So all of this stuff is under British law. So you thinking of the United States ain't what you think. It's a corporation of the crown. And you got to understand that. So a lot of y'all don't understand this information. That's why you having issues. So it's under a foreign jurisdiction, and you got to understand that. So let's get back into it. It says usually it's a private court that usually exists by virtue of a royal grant with jurisdiction over a variety of matters, depending on the grant and whatever powers the court acquires over time. I'm gonna drop this. Hold on, let me stop this music for a second, so I can put a. I'm gonna stop the music for a second, and we're gonna get into this this definition. So it says in 1274, Edwards the First abolished many of these feudal courts by forcing the nobility to demonstrate by what authority, and they filed a writ of quo that held the court. So the quo determines the authority in which they have. So this is also a remedy that you can use when you're dealing with this. So with this matter, and you have to understand that you can file a writ of quo, and a lot of y'all just don't have the capabilities or the skill sets to file a writ of mandamus, an injunction, and a writ of quo. So these are just remedies that can be held. If a lord could not produce a charter reflecting the franchise, the court was abolished, also termed courts of franchise. So I want you to listen to this because this is very important. Dispensing jurisdictions was profitable. Much revenue could come from the fees and dues and fines and amusements. This explained the growth of the second class of the feudal courts. So they're talking about what's going on pretty much today. The franchise courts, they too were private courts held by feudal lords. Sometimes their claims to jurisdiction was based on old pre-conquest grants, doctrine of discovery. So those who are new, look up doctrine and discovery. But many of them were in reality only wrongful usurpations of private jurisdictions by private lords. So what they're doing is they're violating your rights. They're violating your rights in order to have jurisdiction. These were put down after the famous Quaranto inquiry in the reign of Edward I, WJV Windyer Lectures on Legal History, 56, 57, second editions, 1949. So this is this reference that you can see, but I want you to understand how all of this stuff works. So a lot of y'all are missing some of the fundamentals, so you can't get your remedy. So you're doing all this paperwork and you don't know how to set it up like a franchise and know how to orchestrate this information so that you can get your remedy in court and enforce it. Now, I did a video on rules of evidence and a lot of different things. You have to watch those videos. I'm not going to go back and explain all of that to tie all this together. You have to watch these videos. You have to subscribe and you have to look at what we're doing. But we took the sting out of all of this. And that's why I said there's levels to this information based upon my years of study, practice, and just experience that you get when you're dealing with us through must. So I'm gonna drop this on you. So we're gonna talk about subjects. So I want you to understand what subject matter and subjects are not the same thing. So one who owes allegiance to a sovereign is governed by the laws, sovereign laws, and which is a monarchy subject. Now, I want you to understand that when you talk about subject and you having them having personal jurisdiction over, this is where personam jurisdiction come in at. So you got to understand this information and intertwine this information so it makes sense. So let's read it. Speaking generally, we may say that the terms subject and citizens are synonymous. Subjects and citizens are likely those relations to the state in personal and not merely territorial, and permanent and not merely temporary. So it's not merely territorial, permanent, and not merely temporary. This equivalent, however, is not absolute. For in the first place, the term subject is commonly limited to monarchical forms of government, while the term citizen is more especially applicable in the case of republic. A British subject becomes by naturalization a citizen of the United States of America or of France. Understand this. Look at this. A British subject becomes by naturalization a citizen of the United States or of France. In the second place, the term citizen brings into prominence the right and privileges of a statute. Now, I told you statutes are British law. Rather than its correlation obligations, while the reverse in this case with the term subject. Finally, it is to be noticed that the term subject is capable of different and wider applications in which it includes all members of the body politic, whether they are citizens, i.e. subject stricto sensu, or resident aliens. All such persons are subjects or being subject to the power of the state in this jurisdiction and on it to it at least temporarily fidelity, and obedience. So John Solomon Jurisprudence 113. This is the reference that if you can find this book. So you got to understand what's going on with this information. So even when you're a United States citizen, you technically they take you out of your your they put you under a foreign power. You are actually are a foreigner to the United States. They pulled you into a foreign jurisdiction. And I'm showing you right here. You actually become under a foreign jurisdiction, under a foreign power. You're not in the Americas no more. You in the de facto, and they pulled you out of your sovereign powers. So you just got to understand this, that they are a foreign corporation. And a lot of y'all don't understand this information in its entirety. So let's go down to subject matter. I just want to show you this. It says subject matter, the issue presented for consideration, the thing in which a right or a duty has been asserted. The thing is dispute subject to see corpus, property. We'll talk about property. And then we're going to say patentable subject matter. Sometimes written as now as subject matter. So I want you to understand when you talking about your franchise and international law, when you speaking on instruments and how those instruments or how those intellectual property is being used for the benefit of a foreign power and how all this stuff is working, you got to know how to make this stuff uniform so you can get your remedy. So now when you understand subject matter, I want you to look at it like this. Okay, you gotta have personam jurisdiction. The subject matter is going to be what? The intellectual property. And the property associated with that. I'm sorry. And the issue associated with that is going to be the contract. So when we're dealing with, you got to remember all things is property. So they're going to determine in your corporate war status, if you are subject to the jurisdiction. So when you create these entities, you create a corporate war status. A lot of y'all ain't getting this. And this is where you getting your nationality from. You in a corporate war status. Like, for example, if you create a franchise, you're going to have the CEO, the CFO, the regional managers. Then you're going to have the district managers. You're going to have employees. Then you're going to have local managers. You're going to have all these different people. Their status determines what authority that they have, the jurisdiction that they have within the franchise. So when you understanding this information, I'm breaking this down so I can show you how this works. So when you understand who you are, it's not enough just being a citizen. You got to understand your status within that congregation in which you determine your status or your authority based upon your position in the franchise. You see what I'm saying? But the bottom line of it is, if you're within that jurisdiction and the property that's being used is utilized by that franchise, whoever using said property they owe you to utilize their property. And if they fail to do so, that's a lawsuit. So we're gonna move on. Because like I said, there's levels to this. And a lot of people don't understand this information and how these doctrines apply within these franchise state or within these trusts that's operating as a franchise or that created a franchise. So we're going to talk about, they was talking about a patent, and we're talking about, I want you to understand what a patent is and understand all these instruments. For first, let's look at instrument. A written legal document that defines rights, duties, entitlements, or liabilities, such as a contract, will, promissory note, or share certificate. So these are all. So this is understanding what an instrument is, so you can align yourself within your jurisdiction. So when you're dealing with people and you're trying to build a congregation, you got to know how to set this up. You know, I know everybody wants the, the meat and the potatoes, and I dropped a lot of jewels, but I'm giving you more information to construct what you need to do. And that's why I said we took the sting and bite out of all of this. This is not very complicated anymore because we understand from a, a corporate level, from a franchise level to another level when we're talking about blood pedigree based upon Dreet um, and sequel sanguinis, where you're talking about heirship, blood rights to the land, soil, to the land, air, and water. That's a different degree. Right now, we're talking about instrumentalities, corporations, the de facto status in which you can create your own foreign corporation and learn and know how to operate and still know how to safeguard everything through what I talk about. Asset protection. What? Through estate planning, which teach you asset protection, that teach you privatization, contractual safeguard, and tax avoidance. So let's move on. So let's look at another definition of an instrument. An instrument seems to embrace contracts, deeds, statutes, once again, wills, orders, and council orders, warrants, schemes, letter of patents. This is all dealing with copy, trademark, intellectual property. This is all dealing with intellectual property. Rules, regulations, bylaws, whether in writing or in print, or partly in both, in fact, in writing or print documents that may have to be interpreted by the courts. So this is what I'm trying to tell you. You got to understand this is whether in writing or in print or partly in both, in fact, in any writing or printed document that may have to be interpreted by the courts. So you got to understand that. So now when you go to a court, you asking that court to make a finding based upon that they have authority to make a ruling on the subject matter. And you got to understand that. So when you go to these federal and state courts, you got to know how to deal with them. You got to know how to stop them. That's why you got to learn your writs, like a writ of quorum rito, a writ of mandamus, and a writ of prohibition. You got to understand. Even a writ of habeas. So you got to understand all of this stuff on how to intersect and deal with the courts. Not only that, you then got to understand how to set up your infrastructure where you comply with due process of law. You understand, where you understand how to deal with these things appropriately. Because if you're filing things like sometimes within the UCCs, when you're dealing with that is dealing with contract law, the common law of contracts within the state. Because every state has their UCCs. So when you do that, you got to understand you're putting yourself within the jurisdiction of the state. So you got to, I'm telling you, there's levels and degrees to this information that you have to make sure that you understand. And that's why I'm showing you about this. So we're going to go to commercial, and I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to show you this. Commercial law, unconditional promise or order to pay a fixed amount of money with or without interest or other fixed charges described in the promise or order. Under the UCCs, a promise or order must be several other specifically listed requirements to qualify as an instrument. A UCC Section 3-104 C negotiable instrument, a means by which something is achieved, performed, or furthered, an instrument of social equality. So you got to understand this in a nutshell when dealing with this information. So I told you that the UCCs, and let me go here. Let me see. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. And I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna drop this science on y'all. Every state has their own commercial codes. Now we're gonna look at the general provisions. Chapter repeal general provisions. This chapter is used the numbering system of National Conference on Commission on Uniform State Laws. Uniform state laws. The digits to the right of the decimal point are sequel and not supplement to any preceding revised code section. So I'm just showing you some of the stuff. Construction of uniform commercial codes to promote its purpose and policy, applicability of supplement principles of law, and this is dealing with all contracts. So let me just, under the section, they tell you a code must be liberally construed and applied to promote their underlying purpose and policy, which are to simplify, clarify, and modernize the law governing commercial transactions. So we're talking about contracts. To permit the continual expansion of commercial practice through customs, usage, and agreement of the parties. So when they talk about customs and usage, this is where you got to come in with your religious practices. If you don't practice usury, this is stuff that you got to put in the contracts. This is what I'm trying to tell you. You guys got to understand that. So if you're a Muslim or a Muslim and you don't practice usury, these things got to be outlined with your property so that people don't get this misconstrued, so they be charging you interest. To make uniform the law among various jurisdictions. Here we go again. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You got to read. That's why I'm trying to tell you. Go through your state codes. You guys are not going through. I can't repeat it enough. Go through your state codes. Go through your state statutes. Contract. I'm just showing you guys. The principle of law and equity include the law of merchant. I'm showing you. And the laws relative to the capacity to contracts. Capacity to contracts. And the principal and agent, estoppel, fraud, misrepresentation, duress, coercion, mistake, bankruptcy, and other violating or invalidating cause supplemented their provisions. I'm giving you your remedy, and y'all don't even understand that. I'm giving you your remedy, and y'all need to look within your state and understand how to put this together. I'm not going to explain it. That's why you guys need to rock with Must. So I'm going to put my information out here. So, look. King L. Back. I want you guys to hit me up on Facebook. We can drop this science. I'm going to drop this science on y'all. One thing I do is I show and prove. Because most of you guys, I'm just saying, I mean, I'm relentless with this information. I am just, this is what I do all day, every day. I don't stop. I'm finna start putting more information together. I'm gonna show you how to do this from different degrees. And we're going to first elaborate on this and get this together. I don't know why it's not trying to come up. I don't know what's going on. Facebook ain't trying to show me no love. But nevertheless, go to Moore's Universal Society of Tribes. Hit me up. Our telephone number is 513. I'm going to see if I can put it in the box. This is our number, 513-549-7270. That's our telephone number right here. You can hit us up. We're going to break this information down. We're going to show you how to set up trust. We'll show you how to operate. We're going to show you how to deal with your franchise. We're going to show you how to contract. We're going to show you how to enforce this within the proper jurisdictions so you can constantly get your remedy. Also, let me show you this. We got the Must Family Court. We got our own court. And that we record. See, you got to understand how a lot of this stuff works and how the private use the public to be a custodian of records. So we're just dropping this science on y'all, man. We got this ghosting of the system. You need to go to Moore's Universal Society of Tribes. Y'all need to be sharing this information, man. Like, I should have way more subscribers because I'm dropping this information. And like I said, I mean, we're very thorough with this information. So I just want to say peace and love. Who's supporting this? I'm just dropping this fire so you guys can see. We bringing this stuff into clarity, and we're gonna show you how to move and enforce this. We're gonna show you, like I told you before, if you watch my videos and a lot of my posts, when you go to my YouTube and you go to my Facebook and to the Moore's Universal Society Tribes, man, we be dropping all type of science so you can understand. So this is King L Bay, peace and love. Like I said, we got everything you need, and we're going to show you how to utilize this information within the prospective jurisdictions. And you have to just be careful, and you have to understand how to file your UCCs and which prospective jurisdictions that you need to file it. So this is King L Bay signing out. Peace and love to everybody. Watch the video. I'm dropping fire.